All right, so 10 questions that you should ask in an interview or could ask in an interview. Definitely come prepared with at least 8 to 10 questions, even more is better. Jot them down in a notebook. I know a lot of companies who will basically just disqualify you, right? If you don't have any questions at all, it shows that you're not curious about the company. And I mean, seriously though, like you can't go into an interview and then not have any questions because that means that you must know everything there is to know about the company, right? Unless you want to just like get out of the room as soon as possible and you really don't like the company, then I guess you don't need to ask any questions. But if you are genuinely interested in working there, then you should probably prepare. There is such thing as a good question and a bad question.
What's your policy on Columbus Day?
We work.
Really? The guy discovered the new world.
A bad question is simply a question that you can pretty much just Google and find the answer to. If you're asking that question, then the company is going to go, okay, you could have just Googled that. Why are you asking us, how many offices we have, right? It's not really an important or useful question because, you can just look it up online. So a good question is the opposite of that, something you cannot Google. So, for example, what is the biggest customer that the company has? Maybe they don't disclose that on the website. Maybe that information is not public, and it's something that is going to be important for you because it's a client that you're going to be working with quite frequently, maybe if it's the biggest one. So you want to be asking those questions that are not easily found online. Simple rule. All right, so question number 1. What are the key success factors for this position? And how do you define success, right? So this is a really important question because most likely the answer is going to differ a bit from the job description, and hopefully it will give you a good idea of the expectations that the manager has of you in this specific role. Question number 2. How is performance measured in this position and in the company? So you want to know what metrics and what targets they're going to be looking at on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannual, and annual basis. So what are they actually going to be looking at, and are those things achievable, right? Do you understand what those things entail from day one of the job? Question number 3. Who are your biggest customers in terms of revenue, and how do you communicate with them? So this is kind of 1 or 2 questions packed in one, but you really want to start getting at, okay, who are you working with? What are they like? What are the names of the clients you're working with? Whether that's a B2B customer or a B2C customer, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. You probably have some sort of customer, even if it's an internal position. Maybe your customer is a team in the company, or maybe it's external. There's going to be a group of people that you're dealing with, so you want to understand who are those people and what are they like. Question number 4. What is your business model? Right, so this is a question maybe you don't ask point blank. You can give a little bit of context before, like, what is explain your understanding of their business model first, and then go into the parts that you don't understand. For example, you can say, oh, I understand that you guys have an affiliate model business, so you get an 8% commission from customers, but what I don't understand is how long is your sales cycle, or what about this other revenue stream? Do you guys get money from advertisements also, right? So you want to clarify all the pieces of their business model and hear it in their own words, but of course make sure to share what you already know beforehand, just to establish a little bit more of credibility and also kind of a smooth transition into the question. Question number 5. What is your 3-year growth strategy? And are there any challenges around this? So this is a really good question about the company because it shows that you are curious about the overall growth of the business, right? You're not just thinking short term about the position and yourself and money and everything, right? So you want to know what their plan is, and that kind of entails that, or implies that you want to be there that long, right? You want to be motivated by their mission and what their plan is, right? And if they don't have a plan, if they don't have a strategy, then that should be a red flag. Question number 6. what kind of tools and systems will I be using on the job? And are those systems built internally or externally? How long does it take most people to get up to speed with those tools? So this is like a more technical question. You'll probably know about, at that point, hopefully know about some specific tools you will be using. Now, if it's Microsoft Excel or Word or something, like that's a bit more obvious, but there might be some internal systems that you're not familiar with. They'll be good to learn about after the interview, so you can do a bit more research. So ask that question. It'll show a real, curiosity of, okay, what am I actually gonna be doing on a day-to-day basis, and what are all the pieces of that? So it's a great question to dig a little bit deeper into that. Question number 7. What is your management style or philosophy? So this is a really, really important question, and you should really pay close attention to what they answer, right? If they really believe in a tight micromanagement approach, no matter what, then you're gonna expect that sort of really hands-on management, and maybe that's something you don't like, or maybe it is something you like. So you really want to listen to how they manage people and what that actually means, right? So what examples do you have of that sort of management technique that you implemented? Question number 8. Can you give me a specific example of how your values play out in your culture, right? So what does that mean? So basically, a lot of companies, when they describe their culture, talk about it being a fun culture or a strong culture, and we've got TGIF Fridays, and we've got ping pong tables and all that good stuff. But that's just a small part of culture, right? Really, the culture is how people communicate with other colleagues internally. It's how they communicate with their customers. It's what they believe, and the reason that they're actually doing business, right? So it could be the organizational structure. So maybe they're a highly complex, organized, top-down structure, like a Microsoft or an Intel, right? Or maybe it's a much more loosely coupled or flat organization, right? And those things are going to affect and define the culture, and it's going to affect how you work. So you want to know exactly what they believe in, and actually how it manifests, not simply what's hanging on the wall, right? So what does it actually mean? And that will be extremely important for you, because after all, you're going to be spending a lot of time at the company. Question number 9. What is your company's biggest weakness right now, and what are you guys doing to overcome that? So this is a great question, because it's really just like head on, and whoever you're asking, the hiring manager, HR, CEO, I mean, it's a pretty intense question, because they're kind of on the spot now, right? And the tables have turned, right? So you're kind of grilling them at this point, and they, for the most part, I think people are honest, and it's a really good indicator of usually either their humility or their bigger problems, and they're gonna tell you, right? So for example, if they respond with, one of our biggest challenges now is we've got a 50% turnover rate, meaning we have half of the companies leaving every year. So why is that? What is the what is the underlying cause of that? That could be a really red flag, or maybe they just went through something in the past year and they changed the CEO, so everyone kind of followed the old CEO. Like, whatever. There's a million things that could be going on, but you want to find out, like, okay, what is that weakness, and what is the reason behind that, and is that going to affect your job? So super important question to ask. Make sure not to chicken out, because it is a pretty intense question, but most people are more than happy to answer it, and they will appreciate your courage to ask that sort of question. Question number 10 is the final question. This is something that like 99% of people do not ask, so I really recommend that you ask it. So, is there anything that I said or anything in my background that you think does not qualify me for this job? Now, that is a great question, because it gives you kind of a second chance. So, they're going to think about it for a second, and they're going to go, oh, Yeah, actually, I was a little bit concerned about your Excel skills because you've only got a year of using Excel, and then you can think about a rebuttal and how you're gonna come back to them, and then maybe you've got all this other Excel experience in university or for some other side project that you didn't put on your resume. So it gives you a chance to come back with something really strong and say, hey, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I do have a lot more Excel experience than is written on my resume. So blah, 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 blah. And that could be a game changer, right? And a lot of the time, surprisingly, Excel is just this one example, but a lot of the times people, hiring managers or HR, they won't bring up their concerns. People are generally polite and they don't want to give you feedback directly in the interview. Now, a lot of companies will, but a lot of them won't. So you can't depend on or you can't rely on that, possibility that they may or may not. So you really want to put yourself out there. Ask that question. Is there anything that is concerning based on my interview so far? And that is a really good way to make sure that you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's.